Let's continue with our lessons of about fourths and fifths. So now that you've viewed the previous video about just how to construct and identify fourths and fifths, either on the staff, mentally, or on the keyboard, let's actually go to finding specific perfect fourths and perfect fifths. Now, up to this point with seconds and thirds, we were dealing with major qualities. Now, fourths and fifths, there is no such thing as a major fourth or a major fifth. That major gets replaced by perfect. So if you give me an answer, major fifth, it's going to be wrong because that interval does not exist. So just remember, those are perfect fourths and perfect fifths. In terms of where you could find major and perfect intervals, it's actually quite simple. If you take any major scale, let's take C major. If you compare the first note of any major scale and get the distance from that note to any other note of its scale, you will get either a major or a perfect interval. So that's a major second, major third. Remember, this is a perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, major seven, and major octave. Sorry, perfect octave. Made the mistake that I told you not to do. So the ones that are perfect are these ones. It's really symmetrical. The unison, if you had a C3 and another C3 side by side, the distance would be a perfect unison. And then perfect fourth, perfect fifth, and perfect octave. So 1, 4, 5, and 8 are all perfect intervals when they're found in a major triad. The seconds and thirds and the sixths and sevenths are major. Okay, so let's specifically talk about perfect. I would like to start with a perfect fifth first. So one way you could do it, actually, I'm going to just start drawing a bunch of perfect fifths. And you'll see, hopefully, there's a consistent pattern between all of these various perfect fifths. So remember, you already have a fifth when you start with a space and skip a space and go to the next space, right? Those should be easily identifiable as a fifth. Same thing, line to line with a line in between is a fifth. Are you starting to see a pattern here? What do you notice about all of these? So these are actually all perfect fifths. What do they have in common? Well, obviously they're fifths, space to space with a space in between, or line to line with a line in between. But they are automatically perfect fifth if you notice, if one is a sharp, the other is a sharp. One is a flat, the other is a flat. So they always have, I'm going to call it the same accidentals. Okay, so even if it doesn't have one, they both, neither of them have them, so they're the same. So it's white, white, sharp, sharp, flat, flat, double flat, double flat, double sharp, double sharp. They're always perfect, so that's nice and easy. However, of course, nothing's ever that simple. Overall, it does follow that pattern. There's one exception, and that is between these specific pitches. What are these pitches? It's B and F. You have to remember that particular combination of pitches, F and B, B and F. When it's this order, B above up to F, this is a fifth as well, but this is not perfect. I want you to hear all of them, okay? I'm going to play them in various, just the same octave, so I may not follow this particular treble clef. But here is F sharp to C sharp. And actually, this is an enharmonic G flat to D flat. Remember, it sounds like Star Wars? I mentioned that before. We'll go into that in more detail. And then D and A double sharps, both of them. So it's here. And A and E. This one. let me play B and F. You see, that just sounds nasty, doesn't it? Here's the reason. If you actually study all the perfect fifths I played before, notice that if you lay it out on the keyboard like this, there's always one black key missing between all the white keys, right? There's one black key missing. These are all perfect fifths. One black key missing. One black key missing. One black key missing. Now notice when I play the B and F together, do you notice that you now have two black keys missing, right? Between adjacent white keys. So is this bigger or smaller than a perfect fifth? It is missing an extra black key, isn't it? So it is smaller. Okay, so this is not a perfect fifth. The quality that is a half step smaller than a perfect is called diminished. Diminished. Sometimes, as in your Theodore Lynn book, you might see diminished abbreviated as a lowercase d. So it kind of goes in the tradition that we do major, capital M, minor, lowercase m, diminished. Because it is even smaller, it's a lowercase. However, since I'm trying to teach you from a classical theory study point of view, we don't use this typically. Instead, we will use this. So these are all perfect fifths. So capital P and a 5, perfect fifth. This is not a perfect fifth. Remember, it's a diminished fifth. So instead of putting a D5, we do this. It's basically a degree sign, diminished fifth. So for the first time, we're actually replacing the first letter of the word with a symbol instead. So think D for degree, D for diminished, so you can remember that. It is absolutely crucial that you remember to place the diminished symbol before the size, because you would say major third, minor second, perfect fifth. All of those qualities come first. So there's no reason to change this, okay? So this is also called diminished fifth. I have students who go like this. This is wrong. This is not a musical identification. This is a temperature, right? A degree, isn't it? 5 degrees, or it also could be 5 degrees in regard to the angle. So this is wrong. This has nothing to do with music. So remember, I will penalize, maybe take off half a point if you do this, because why are you suddenly putting it here? Because you don't call it 5 degrees or 5 diminished or fifth diminished. You say diminished fifth. Always put the quality first. Just because a letter name gets replaced by a symbol does not mean it changes order. It's always the same order. Quality, then size. Okay? So this is a diminished fifth if you have a B and an F, whether it was sharp sharp or white white or flat flat, if they have the same accidental, because basically remember that all the fifths are almost always going to be perfect if they share the same accidental, except with the B and F. So if the B and F share the same accidental, it is always a diminished fifth. How would I make this a perfect fifth? Here's B and F. Remember, this is a half step too small. I got to make it a half step bigger. So if I'm keeping the B, what do I have to do to F? I am going to have to raise it to F sharp. Conversely, if I keep the F where it is and you have to find a perfect fifth below, what do you have to do to this? Remember, you have to make it a half step bigger. So in lowercase, you're going to have to lower the note, right? It becomes B flat. Here's another way to know when you have perfect fifths. Do you remember any of your major triads, right? If you have this is A flat major, isn't it? This, all triads, the major triad, between the root and fifth, is the quality of a perfect fifth. So remember, if we were talking about B and F, if I ask you for what is the pattern for B major triad, wouldn't it be white, sharp, sharp? And there it is, right? Or if I say B flat major, it will be BDF, right? But it'll be flat, white, white. So between F and B, you have to the black key just one bigger in either case. Everything else, it'll match. If I say A major, what is a major pattern? White, sharp, white. And notice A and E, white, white. If I ask you for F sharp major, F, A, C, sharp, 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 right? And look, perfect fifth, sharp and sharp. E major, EGB, white, sharp, white. EMB, white, white. Yeah? So almost always your perfect fifth, the two notes will have matching accidentals, except when it's B and F. It is crucial that you just go, oh, I don't never remember the B and F and which one it is, so I'm just going to always assume they're perfect if they have matching accidentals. Well, anytime the B and F come up, you have to make sure you catch that, because this is not a perfect fifth, right? Whether it's B flat, F flat, or B sharp, F sharp, any of those, if they're matching, it is automatically a diminished fifth. So let's go to fourths now. I'll just do bass clef just for a change. Remember, fourths, if you have a line note, the other one is the opposite, right? It will be a space note. What are you noticing here? It's basically the exact same rule, whether, so if there's fourths, white, white, flat, flat, sharp, sharp, or double sharp, double flat, they will always have matching accidentals. Except, same thing. You see this two pitches, B and F? It would just be in this order, F and B. So obviously, depends which way you invert, right? Which one is lower than the other. You're going to get either a fifth or you're going to get a fourth. So again, this is a fourth, but which one is it? So let's listen to all your perfect fourths. I'm going to play a bunch here. If you're going up, it sounds like the Wedding March. Doesn't sound quite as nice as a perfect fifth, but it still sounds pleasant, doesn't it? So it'll be A flat, D flat, or G sharp, C sharp, G and C, C sharp, F sharp. They always have the same accidental. Now, let me go to this one, F and B. That doesn't sound good, does it? It's far from the Wedding March. Okay, so let's figure out, is it bigger or is it smaller than a perfect fourth? Why does it sound so nasty? So let's take a look. Here's a perfect fourth. Again, just like perfect fifths, if you see it on the keyboard, wherever there's two notes that's a perfect fourth apart, you will always find a black key missing somewhere. Black key missing right here. Black key missing right here. It doesn't matter where the perfect fourth is. There's always going to be a black key missing. Now, take a look. F and B together, right? Do you notice there is no black key missing? There is an extra key here. So, everyone understand it? This is a half step bigger, isn't it? Half step bigger. Because it's not missing a black key. So, what is the quality that's a half step bigger than a perfect quality? That is called augmented. And again, you might see it abbreviated as a capital A. But again, we're not going to do that because in classical theory, it would be a symbol again. And again, it stays on the left side. It would be this. It's just a little plus sign. So think this is like an add symbol, right? A for add, A for augmented, D for degree, D for diminished. Of course, in music, though, this is not a degree. It's a diminished sign. This is your augmented. Again, as always, put your quality first. Do not move it over on the wrong side. Augmented fourth. So how are you going to remember this? You know what? This seems like it'll be a smaller interval than this one, isn't it? Okay? They're actually the same size. Watch this. If I play F and B, F up to B, let's count the half steps. So from F up to here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, isn't it? Now I'm going to invert it so it's B up to F. B up to F. That was 6 half steps from F up to B as a augmented fourth. Now here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're both the same distance. They're both 6 half steps apart. So notice that one is a fourth and one is a fifth, and they're both the same distance. Okay? So kind of think what falls right in between a fourth and a fifth in terms of a number between 4 and 5. I want you to think 4.5 or 4.5. Yeah? So think of this. There obviously is not an interval size. That's 4.5. But whenever you're dealing with F and B or B and F, okay, and they have the same accidental, sharp, sharp, flat, flat, white, white, double flat, etc., it's always going to be, if it's B and F, basically think of 4.5. So it'll show you what quality it needs to be. If it's a fifth, if you need 4.5, you need to shrink it, don't you, to get to 4.5. So you're going to diminish. And if you start with a 4, you're going to have to make it bigger to get to 4.5. So try to remember that. You're basically, right? This is just a half step bigger than a fourth, perfect fourth, and that's a half step smaller than a perfect fifth. And you end up basically the same size. Another thing I want to talk about. So going back to these two intervals were 6 half steps apart, right? 6 half steps. That equals how many whole steps? 3 whole steps, right? I want to teach you a new term called tritone. Because when you hear that interval, that nasty sounding interval, there's actually a special name for it, this particular distance. It's called a tritone. It's a sort of a generic one. The tritone can be written as either an augmented fourth or a diminished fifth. Okay? So try to think. This is actually what this means. 3 is your tri, right? The British term for whole steps and half steps, for half steps they say semitone, and for whole steps they say whole tone, or sometimes just tone. So tritone, 3 whole steps. That's really what it's called. Okay, it's a very dissonant interval. Now remember, consonant just is a generic description to say that, sounds pleasant, sounds pleasing to the ear. Dissonant is it does not sound pleasing to the ear. And this definitely doesn't sound good. So that's a tritone. Back in the Middle Ages and in the Renaissance period, really the only music that really we can understand or even it still exists today in manuscript form is sacred music. Music used in the church. And they really avoided that interval. They just instinctively just hated that sound. They just, it's horrible. And so they kind of termed this distance, it's basically music of the devil. Devil's music. And so they always avoided it. Tritone. There you go. I think I have taught you everything about perfect fourths and perfect fifths, and I will obviously review it again during our one class on April 2nd. That is for week 6.